Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Hope in the Time of Corona. My name is Matt and I'm joined today by my lovely wife, Esther.
Hi.
We are going to be thinking a little bit about stress because, I don't know about you, but we have been feeling a little bit stressed. You've been feeling stressed?
I've been feeling stressed. Home with a 1-year-old and a 2-year-old and change of routine. It's been stressful, yeah.
It is stressful, having to adapt working patterns to work from home or shopping patterns or whatever it might be. And I think, we don't have to tell you this, I think everyone is affected at some level by new pressures or new stresses or new anxiety because of the global pandemic that we are facing. And so we wanted to think a little bit about that today. And in particular, think about a study that Esther was reading that has been helpful to us. So Esther's gonna tell us a little bit about that, and then we're gonna think about 6 very practical, hopefully, ways of expressing and processing and relieving stress. So hopefully it will be very interesting and then very helpful. But Esther, why don't you tell us?
Thanks. So the book that Matt is referring to is called Burnout, and we actually read about this study a few years ago, and it really stuck with us because it felt like it gave us words to express something of like how we were feeling. And so their study, their theory is that stress comes in cycles, and these cycles have a beginning, the stressor, and then they should also have an end, so the cycle is completed. And so in their example, they talk about being chased by a lion, which isn't so relevant today, but does sum up like an adrenaline stress response. So you're chased by a lion and you have that stress response. And then it has one of 2 outcomes. Number 1, you get eaten, stress is gone. Or number 2 is you escape, and then you have that moment of like, okay, stress cycle complete.
Yeah. And so the cycle completes in one of 2 ways, in your grisly death or in your sigh of relief. But either way, it is an end that you get to quickly.
Yeah.
Like you get to the end of the cycle. But I don't know how long you can outrun a lion for.
Yeah, not long.
Like a minute? I don't know. Like 10 seconds? I don't know. Like whatever.
It sounds like you've never been chased by a lion before.
Yeah. Gosh, you're making me blush.
Yeah, exactly. So this stress cycle was never designed to be our bodily response for the long term. And we see now that kind of we do have that response, and we try and maintain it for time, for a career, for a deadline. And we've seen in the news over the last 10 years, like this idea of chronic stress and how it leads to heart attacks or strokes or breaks down families. And so I think that is really key. We can't maintain this stress, and it often, maybe you meet a deadline, but for the majority of it you don't have a clear end point.
Yes, there's no end points, and when there's no end point, I think it's interesting that as you're explaining, even like you're tensing, and that's, we talk about tension, and I think what we do with stress and tension is that we carry it in our bodies. We are, as human beings, we are mindful, we think about things, we have a spirit, but we also have bodies. And of all the times to be thinking about this, right after Easter weekend, where Jesus resurrects his body and says like, oh, you thought it was all about spirit, hey? No, I'm bringing body back. Or, like that we, as Christians, we believe in that we are integrated beings. And so it follows through entirely that when you feel stressed, it affects your body too. And that's what you're saying. People have heart attacks. The body carries it for too long, and then the body says, I'm out. You might want to carry on carrying this stress at this level, but I'm not going to help you do that. Or I can't help you do that. Like you get aches and pains. You wake up with like a shoulder out of joint or something. And maybe it's because you were playing tennis. Maybe it's because you're tensing everything because there's a stress response and you carry it in your body.
Yeah. It totally, it just goes to speak to how entwined we are as beings. That something that goes into our minds, like work stress, comes out in our physicality, in our bodies. And something else I was reading recently was talking about how here in the West we are particularly bad at dealing with stress because we don't process it. We try and distract ourselves, or we bury it. And the person, this psychologist, was saying that in the West, we are kind of all the children or the grandchildren of alcoholics. And that's definitely true, like in my family ancestry. People have turned to alcoholism. And today it might not be alcohol, but we turn to distraction. We turn to all sorts of different things. So it's not to actually deal with the stress.
Yeah, just yesterday we were talking about, as a household, we were talking about our food bills, which have gone up since we've all been at home for coronavirus lockdown or whatever. And partially that's because we're all at home. Partially that's because food provides a level of comfort and distraction from what you're feeling. Esther said yesterday, we're all trying to eat away our feelings. And spoiler, you can't. And ultimately that doesn't work. You can suppress and repress feelings with food or alcohol or scrolling social media, but ultimately it doesn't resolve the cycle.
Yeah. So then we have the 6 things that Emily and Amelia Nagoski recommend. And number 1 is movement, which I think we probably all could have guessed that would be on the list. But going for a run, any kind of physical movement, they say, is the first line of defense against stress.
Yeah. So these 6 things are all their ways. They're saying these 6 things are ways to close off this stress cycle.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
And movement is at number 1. And I mean, it's interesting, isn't it, that we've all been told to stay in our houses, but even the government recognises this. They're but here's your 30 minutes of exercise space a day. And I've spoken to a lot of people who are now exercising for 30 minutes a day who never were before.
Yeah, have you seen those things? After coronavirus is over, NHS won't be strained by it anymore. It'll actually be lifted out of debt by all these healthy people that are going for runs.
Yeah. And that's interesting, isn't it? That at a time like this is a place that we turn to respond. And again, it's exercising your physical body. It's about speaking to the fact that we carry tension not in our minds primarily, but we transfer it to our body, and so give our bodies the opportunity to express that, to move that. So
And the second one is also quite bodily as well. So the second one is breathing, and it links a lot to the exercise because it's like a very physical thing. They recommend that you should breathe in for 5 seconds, or to the count of 5, hold it for the count of 5, and then breathe out for 10 counts or 10 seconds. And Amelia and Emily Nagoski, they say that this is great as a first step towards dealing with bigger stress or bigger trauma. It's like a gateway into beginning the process of healing. Or if it's just small stresses that you're dealing with, slow internet whilst you're on a Zoom call, that it's a really good way of letting that those little micro stress cycles come to their finish.
Yeah. Why? What is it about breathing?
I don't know, but both of these two are very yoga. And the guy I was listening to talking about how all of our grandparents are alcoholics, he was saying that he's seen yoga bring so many beneficial results to people that are struggling with trauma.
Well, I think actually it's interesting that you would mention him again. Poor guy. What's his name?
Yeah, something Dutch.
Yeah, it doesn't get a look in. Sorry, but his ideas are all about how we try to suppress and bury by avoiding. Whereas I think being physical, doing exercise, by breathing, you acknowledge. Maybe the first step is acknowledging that there is something which is stressing you out, and just sitting and breathing, you start to feel your body, you feel the tension in your neck that you perhaps never knew that was there. You haven't paused for long enough to realise that you're carrying all of this stuff and every muscle is tense. Or some people bite their teeth together and grind their teeth. You maybe don't notice that you're doing that, but spend a moment kind of being mindful of your whole body. And then you're like, why am I biting my teeth together?
Mindfulness.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess breathing, mindfulness.
Exactly. Yeah.
And the next one I really like. The next one is positive social interaction. And so the idea that actually the stress cycle can be completed by going to your coffee shop and wishing your barista a nice day, or complimenting someone on the street's clothes or earrings. It's really lovely. And one of the examples they give is when you get on the bus and someone comes on and you think, don't sit next to me, because you think that you will be happier if they don't sit next to you. But their studies show that actually we're happier if they do sit next to us, and then we have some kind of polite, nice kind of social chat with them.
Yeah. Yes. And I mean, I've certainly experienced that out and about. I mean, not since we've been in lockdown, unfortunately. But in my life here in London, especially in London, where the line is definitely like, give me my space, don't come near me. And actually, when you do have those interactions, it resets, or it brings some joy, or it brings some meaning, or.
And I think the part of it is also, if you're in a place of stress, your perspective is kind of skewed and the world is a bad place. But having positive social interaction helps you actually believe like it's safe, people are nice.
Yes.
And I wonder if after coronavirus is over, this is something that we're going to have to really step back into after being told time and again, like, don't go outside, the world is not a safe place.
Yeah.
But actually to embrace it being safe again is to speak to the person next to you on the bus.
And already, though, this work has begun, and it's nice because, you see equally in the news, I mean, there's lots of bad news right now, but you also see stories of people reaching out to their neighbours in a way that you wouldn't have seen before.
Yeah.
And I think this is part of closing that stress cycle of saying, like, it's not all bad. Or you might have seen windows whilst on your 30 minutes of exercise per day.
Hour, Matt.
Your hour. I'm not sure.
It really is.
Anyway, whilst you're out exercising in the day, you might have seen people with like a rainbow in their window, where children have painted a rainbow. And it's this lovely, I don't know where it came from or started, but this lovely idea that there are reminders, there are human beings here and it is okay. There is also good still. It's not all bad. And so I think for this one, like exercise and breathing, we've got clear provision for. Positive social interactions like this, we can't go and say, have a good day to your, the guy in the coffee shop or whatever. We can't go to the coffee shop. So we might have to work a little bit harder on this right now. But if you have a garden, stick your head over the garden wall. If you have neighbours.
And also, like, not to go on a tangent, but I feel like to have that attitude when you do go shopping, I think would be really powerful. To be in the supermarket where everyone's super fearful and to come in a spirit of peace and of wanting to share some love and light.
Which will be good for them. But I mean, let's not pretend. Like right now we're talking about you and your stress. Like it's better for you to go to the supermarket with like, I'm going to go and tell someone that they look nice.
Yeah.
Don't be weird. Anyway, next one.
The next one is laughter, which is nice, isn't it? And they specify, like, this isn't like polite pretend laughter. This is like belly rolling, uncontrollable laughter. What makes you laugh like that?
I don't know. I mean, it's hard, isn't it? It's another one that I think we really have to work at. In this time, because often the things that are going to make you laugh like that are going to be like interaction with
stand-up comedy,
other people. Yeah. I mean, it's going to be time spent with other people, but there are still things that we've been watching. Brooklyn Nine-Nine. It's
on Netflix.
Family favorite in our house, and it makes me laugh. It's like, I guess there's a space there to watch out for, like just distracting yourself or numbing yourself with like some other story or whatever. But to connect, to breathe deep, to laugh with friends.
They are all connected. Like it's physical, it's breathing, it's Yeah.
find some ways to laugh.
Let's do that one. That sounds fun.
Find the people that make you laugh and give them a call. We've had some lovely times with our life group on Zoom. All of our life groups right now are meeting by Zoom. We've had some lovely times on our life group just laughing along with people as they've spoken about their interactions and encounters of that day. And yeah, it's good to laugh with people. So make some time, space.
The next one is affection. That was me being affection.
Oh, I thought you were trying to murder me. I see.
So this affection isn't necessarily like a physical affection, but they just say find someone who likes you, who you trust, where there's mutual respect, and have a proper conversation with them.
Yes.
Feel that kind of acceptance, feel that kind of mutual understanding, empathy.
Yeah, no, and I think actually this one's really important in light of the one before, right? Because there are times when your stress is on top of you so much that if someone's like, "Oh, don't worry, mate, just have a laugh about it," you're like, "Shut up!"
I can't.
Like, I can't possibly even bear to think about laughing. I feel so crushed by this. But genuine affection from someone that cuts through and it breaks through. So, to find the time and the space to open up to the affection of others, to be affectionate towards others, to build those kind of intimate bonds of relationship.
And if you've got a housemate, they do also say, have a hug. If you've been stuck together for a long time now, but maybe just give each other a hug. They say that does as much as going for a mile-long jog.
Wow. But I don't think in terms of burning calories.
No. But you get less sweaty.
It depends who you're hugging.
That's true.
Some people are sweaty huggers, aren't they?
Or grab your other half and give them a 6-second kiss.
Whoa.
They also specifically say that will do the trick. Give us feedback. Let us know how that goes. And the penultimate one, which I have experienced, and I think probably everyone has, is a good old cry.
Yes. Find opportunities to cry. And crying doesn't solve your problems, right? It doesn't necessarily change the situation which is causing you stress, but changes your relationship with it. And then you were saying something really interesting about movies.
Yeah, that's kind of in the next one though, but also this one.
Oh, really?
But yeah, crying, specifically in movies, the storylines help guide you through your emotions. So I feel like everyone has a movie that they're like, no, I can't watch that. If I watch that, I'm going to cry.
Yeah.
I'm going to be bawling like a baby. And that's because the films help to guide you through that kind of cycle of emotions and give you words and ways of expressing what you're kind of deeply feeling.
Yes, yeah. And I think there's something interesting about that because you don't have to know what you're feeling.
Yeah.
In order for it to work. And yesterday, whilst our children were napping in the afternoon, we watched Toy Story 3. And that's, if you want to cry, that one brings the tears, especially if you grew up at a certain time. Yeah. But it's interesting that as the characters experience loss and grief as they go through this process, you are joined with them, even if you don't know that that's happening. So if you can have a good cry about something seemingly totally unrelated, but it is tapping into something inside of you which is saying, yes, I need to join in. And you might find yourself at times of great stress crying more easily. And that can sometimes be a real signifier. I was driving last week and a song came on, a song which I've heard 10,000 times. I love this song, just a favourite song of mine, and I just started bawling my eyes out in the car, which is a bit embarrassing, isn't it? But it's a sign, and it's not because I was like, oh, that lyric means this or something. It just connected with something and was like, it's all right.
Yeah.
And so
the idea is that you can have that cry, and at the end of crying, you do that sigh where you're like, And that's how you know that you've completed that stress cycle. There's a verse in the Message, I cannot remember where it's from, but it says, laughter tickles your sides, but crying scours your heart. And I feel like that's a really good way of expressing like what crying does. Like it helps you just empty out your heart.
In the Message translation of the Bible.
Sorry, yeah.
Is that what you're talking about? It's probably in Proverbs, isn't it? That would be my guess, but I mean, who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah, wow. It's a good
strong.
one.
And I think crying is my go-to. Sometimes with the kids, like they're screaming all morning and you're just like, and you're starting to get really impatient and you're turning into a less good mum. And then I go upstairs and I put the kids to bed and then I see Matt and he like looks at me kindly and I'm like, It's definitely my go-to more than
That's what all that's about.
more than the going for a run.
Yeah.
That's not my vibe.
Okay, finally, last one, right?
The last one is creative expression.
Yes.
Yep. So this is kind of similar to the crying in a movie thing. That creative expression, like, it gives us ways of expressing ourselves. We see ourselves reflected in other things. Like, I don't think it's an accident that so much great art is done in times of stress or of heartbreak. Because it does mean then that we get to feel something and we look at that and we're like, we're understood.
Yes. So creative expression, this is about people creating things or taking in other people's creative expression.
Yes. Yeah.
It's about either. Oh, great.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah. So this is the call to, like, you know, to make something, but also the call to look at something that someone else has made and allow that to speak to you. And I do think that's really important. And, you know, you will have heard across these Hope in the Time of Corona videos, lots of people being like, now's a really good time to start journaling, or that the life check, you know, MOT that Sophie led us in. I can't remember when, like a week and a half ago maybe. That to ask these questions and to write down, like, you are creating something. You are creating words about your life and about your situation as you say, this is how I feel. This is where I find myself today. Or maybe you want to make a series of videos and post them on the internet. Like, we can create things which will connect us.
I really like the example that they give. They say, like, when you are first in love and all your friends are like, shut up talking about the other person, like, and then you can listen to the radio and every song is about your situation and it helps you to express how in love you are. I think that in stress, it can be the same. You may not be able to express it with, like, your friends and your family, but actually you can find people out there, sculptors, painters, who have done things that help you to process your feelings, or, as Matt says, sculpt something yourself, create something yourself. Yeah.
So that's it. We'll call it a day there. These are our 6 top tips for you for bringing that stress cycle to an end. And we would absolutely love to hear from you about which of these have worked. On our social media, on Instagram, do be in touch on there with us about, hey, this one was super helpful, this is what I made, or this is where I went for a run, or here's my crying face. We'd love to hear how these are working for you and what has been helpful for you. So do be in touch. And
we'll be praying for you this week. It's stressful, it's hard. We send you peace through the camera.
Peace through the camera.
Yeah.
And we will see you on the next one.
Bye.